History of English Language. Anglo-Saxon Women's Essay. First of all, we are going to talk about the Anglo-Saxons' background. The Anglo-Saxons settled in Britannia after the fall of the Roman Empire around 410 AD Domini, and, as every arriving civilization, they imposed their way of life. This means that a new culture was introduced. Also, a new religion based on polytheism until the coming of St. Augustine with Christianity. And of course, a new language, which set the basis of the English spoken today. They coexisted with Jutes and Frisians, other tribes from Denmark, though the hegemony belonged to the Anglo-Saxons, which lasted 600 years. Anglo-Saxon society was unequal, based on the leading of a king, accompanied by some free men called laud. It existed also a landowner aristocracy or earls, and some other men that depended on them, the ceorls, a kind of slaves. In a lower category there were free farmer men. We're used to the fact that women and slaves were virtually in the same social status. However, although Anglo-Saxon society was patriarchal, women enjoyed certain rights that the medieval women could not even imagine, mainly because of the presence of Christianity and its strong oppression against the second gender. In regards to Anglo-Saxon women, we should say that they were hard workers, and were very good at what they did. The making of clothes and other textile products were the main activities they pursued by them, and it was one of England's most important exports. Embroidery was the most highly skilled sector of textile work, which made English female to be famed throughout Europe. We have linguistic evidence of women producing other works, including trades, since it has been found feminized work for bards, bakers or brewers. Grinding grain, sowing fields and washing clothes were also traditionally activities for peasant women and slaves. Even the tending of the gardens of nunneries was a task for lay women. The idea of both sexes sharing the tasks seems to belong to modern times. However, this is something that the Anglo-Saxon people already did. For instance, while serving drinks was always a duty for a woman, cooking and serving food was a task for both men and women. This would never happen in the medieval period, when women were virtually excluded and undervalued. One of the reasons of this phenomena may be the following. The word man translates into person, while and wife meant man and woman respectively. However, the bad translation of man into man in Anglo-Saxon documents has led to think that women were inferior to men. Economically speaking, women were very active and their work was valued. They owned and administered their own land and wealth, and could inherit their parents' goods. Legal documents and place names found provide evidence of landowners' women, as well as lots of wills written by them. This is something that in medieval times didn't happen, when men were the ones to receive these goods, and women could only inherit in case of widowhood. In spite of what you may think, even noble women worked in some way. The idea of an idle nobility would appear later on. Women played a great role in the Anglo-Saxon home, as she does still nowadays. It was the mistress who was in charge of the house management. There seems to have existed a strong matriarchal thread in Germanic society, since we have evidence of the existence of wise women or seeresses. What's more, we have letters that demonstrate the presence of strong friendship relations between both men and women, just like it would happen in our actual society. In regards to marriage, this was not imposed as it would be in the medieval period, much more conservative in these cases with the presence of Christianity. In fact, marriage could be described as sheer friendship, or even some kind of contract concerning both families of the couple, always looking for the welfare of both parts. Even if forced marriages went on, this was not approved. A woman could decide on her own who she wanted to marry, and in law, she never depended financially on her husband. They had even the right to decide with whom they had sex, and some peaceweave even remained virgin throughout their marriage. Very open-minded ways of thinking, as you see. Nothing to do with medieval women. It seems that Ethelbert's laws included the right to divorce. If so, women would receive half of the couple's property if she kept the children, something similar to what happens nowadays with the children's custody. When it comes to adultery, laws were quite hard on women. Even so, in this sense they were less punitive than in the medieval period. There were stated punishments for rape. Sending women to nunneries by force was forbidden, and so as marrying a widow if her husband's death was too recent. When a couple was to be married, the woman received a mogengifu, or mourning gift from the man, which would mean that money, goods or land became legal property of the woman. It also meant that on the husband's death, the wife would inherit his belongings. Also, when a woman was victim of a crime, they were treated as the legal equals of men, with the same guild. This is quite similar to what happens nowadays too. When it comes to the church, women were better treated in the first years of Christianity. They were involved as nuns. Besides, the Anglo-Saxons venerated a number of female saints, including St. Hilda as patron saint of learning. In this time, religious places were built for educating and debating as well as for spiritual welfare, but in the medieval period, women were taken to nunneries to avoid a shadowy and pitiful life. Nuns were the main educated women, capable to read and write in both English and Latin. This is not what happened with medieval nuns, as the priests did not see this need of women to do so. Anglo-Saxon nuns were quite respected in society. On the contrary to medieval ages, when women were considered as evil beings. Nuns born noble used to teach, write, copy, translate and produce beautiful illuminating manuscripts. However, women could not become priests, although they could be abbesses, receiving the training of both priests and bishops. Anglo-Saxon women had a wide liberty of intervention in public affairs. However, in medieval ages, women were not represented in the town councils, and the only ones that could be involved were wealthy, clerical, or upper class. Any woman was forced to marry a man that she disliked, and they still remained the owner of her property. This did not happen with medieval women, who were supposed to be completely obedient to her husband's will. To finish with, regarding to military issues, although women in a period of war could fight using weapons in any occasion, they were less likely than men to want to take up arms. In fact, we do know that female monarchs could take on the role of military commander and tactician. However, they almost certainly did not take up arms themselves like the daughter of Alfred the Great, Ethelflaed.